But just to get us started, are you happy to give us an introduction to you and tell us a little bit more about T3?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Vicki Haverson. So I'm a principal consultant with T3, who I joined in March 2019. So T3 are experts really in leadership development and behaviour change. So we focus on helping individuals and organisations to harness the potential that sits within them. And we're really about transforming what people do and the culture they work within. So my background is in working with senior leaders and teams on organisation and business development. So I did that within organisations for about 15 years, both in the UK and the Middle East. And I became a consultant about 5 years ago now. So that's working as a facilitator and coach. And I design bespoke programs for clients. I also get involved in organisation diagnostics, and I'm accredited in some psychometric assessments, and I also manage a number of key client relationships. So I've worked in quite a lot of different industries, including the housing sector. So many years ago now, I worked for what was Anglia Housing, so now Circle Anglia, and Davis Langdon, which is now ACOM, and their construction consultants. So I've also worked for clients in engineering, oil and gas, automotive, airports, pharma, education, professional services. And I came back to the UK in March last year after 9 years working out in the Middle East. So I've had to acclimatise to cold weather again and lots of rain, although we've had some beautiful weather recently, which has been lovely. So I'm also an advanced certified coach and certified strengths coach. So that's not to be confused with keeping fit. That's really about helping individuals to focus and stretch their strengths to achieve success and overcome performance risks. Things like limiting beliefs and strengths that can go into overdrive, because our strengths are our strengths until they're not, of course, and they can become risks to us. So I'm really incredibly passionate about strengths-based approaches as a way to support individuals and teams, not only to achieve fantastic results, it's really as a way to overcome challenges and to stay resilient, both for themselves and to support their teams in becoming and being resilient in times like this.
No, thanks for that, Vicki. It's certainly an interesting time to be launching a leadership program, isn't it, off the back of a pandemic? And I'd love to hear your views on what we've learned from COVID and what COVID has done to our perception of what we need from leadership as we lead organisations back into whatever the new normal is. And also an idea of how this programme can explore some of those things.
Sure. And I think what's really interesting is the COVID-19 pandemic is a real life case study, isn't it? Happening right now, and nobody really saw it coming. So I think the outcome of the crisis will be even more emphasis on developing behaviour and values-driven leadership, which is great because that is what we've designed this programme to focus on and what we at T3 do. So the pandemic's really revealed that we're all human beings, so nobody's immune. And there is no going into things alone now. Nobody can do it all. And for leaders, it's even more important now to think about how you can tap into and play to the strengths of the people we lead to keep both ourselves motivated and others resilient and performing under pressure and through change. So, that's how can they really help people stay engaged, to contribute and do their best work, because we all want to contribute. That's a human need we all have, and we all want to contribute what we do best. So how can they create an environment for people to work together and where individuals can really speak up and be creative, how they can develop and communicate a really clear purpose, and as leaders really hold the space for that. So I think what's really interesting is that as leaders, you can't keep yourself in the middle of everything, because if you're in the middle of everything all of the time, you're just going to burn out. You can't do it all, and you can't do it all, and you don't have all the answers because nobody ever does. And you can't afford for your people to wait for you in a time like this, because what's happening out there is changing so fast all of the time. You need to be able to move with it. So I think in a crisis like this, hierarchy, is really on the struggle bus. because you don't have time to run things up that chain of command. So leaders have to get really, really good at decentralizing and letting the behavior at the edge lead more to do the work that needs to be done. And that can be really difficult, particularly if you've got some behavioral preferences for yourself that are really motivated by doing things. So the program is really about supporting leaders to step out of that operational doing and to work on leading their teams in a way that really stretches and supports them. So the other thing in it is that we are in a situation that's impacting on every single one of us. So leaders, of course, aren't immune to that, and they really need to start with themselves. So that means, really being hyper aware about how they're behaving, how they're coming across to others, and how that may be impacting on people. So, for example, are they calm? Are they giving reassurance without being seen as glossing over the real challenges? How well are they listening? And really listening in a way that hears what others want and need from them to be and perform at their best. And looking beyond their own reality and then out into their teams and their colleagues to understand what role they can play in supporting and motivating them right now. So this is not about assuming we know what other people need, because often we don't know what other people need, and neither is it about applying a one-size-fits-all approach, because every single person is different, and so are leaders themselves. So at the beginning of this program, participants will be taking a psychometric called Facet 5, and this gives access to data about themselves and an insight into their world and their preferences and how they might impact on themselves and others. So how they might be experiencing anxiety in this situation, for example, how they want to be involved in decision making, and most crucially, what they need to be at their best. So these are some of the things that we will be exploring during the programme.
That's perfect, thank you. And can you talk us through the learning methodology that you use with T3 and that you use within your programmes, and also just try and articulate why it's so effective at developing strategic leadership skills?
Sure. So we know that nobody makes a change unless they've got a really compelling reason to change. And that's got to be relevant to them and really relevant to them in the world that they live in. So everything we do to create behaviour change is underpinned by our methodology, and we call that provoke, plant and practice. So we really know that this methodology works because we've seen the measures move upwards for organisations in terms of things like employee engagement, customer satisfaction, just the pace in which they're working, and delivery metrics. So we always begin with the provoke work, and that provoke is about provoking individuals and teams. So they have a really strong, compelling reason to adopt some targeted behaviours that are going to support the programme's overall ambition. So we do this with insights into self, like Facet 5, which I mentioned on the programme, one-to-one coaching feedback that they'll have around that Facet 5. And before we come together for each interactive session, which is what we call the plant, which I'll come on to, we ask participants to do pre-work in terms of reflecting on some specific questions around their own leadership style or exercises, and watching videos on topics to really provoke their thinking. And then the interactive virtual sessions, we plant some really practical alternatives to some of those current behaviours. So we're ensuring that individuals feel really highly motivated to adopt and apply some of these things. So it's important to say that I think that at T3 we are there as facilitators as well. So we facilitate the discussions and support the thinking. So we're not there to train people on content. We of course give some of our own examples and some insights and share some of those. Our aim really is for individuals to connect and to challenge their thinking and current behaviours, and to do that with each other. And then finally, practice is about supporting the individuals to practice the targeted behaviours against some real-time workplace challenges that they're facing. Because each time you practice a new leadership behaviour, you've got some neurons in your brain that are firing and creating some new pathways. So the more you practice, the stronger that neural pathway becomes, and then the easier it is for you to start to adopt those new behaviours. So when practicing back in the workplace, it's really important as well to get that real-time feedback from those around you. and the participants will be having an opportunity through working together to really sort of talk about some of the insights that they've gained as part of doing those things. Because so often in the real world, practice after a session doesn't always go as planned. So it may go wrong, or it might feel really uncomfortable. And it's a little like trying to ride a bike for a first time. You're probably going to fall off it. So you need to reflect on what went wrong, what could be improved, and where you need to tweak things so you can get it right going forward and make those adjustments where you need to.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And one of the main benefits leading into this program was to bring people together to build a regional network and help them to collaborate and work with peers. And now that we've had to shift to a virtual model, can you just explain some of the ways that the group can still come away from this with meaningful relationships in place now that we're trying to replace some of those social interactions?
Yeah, sure. So, of course, as we know, this programme was going to be face-to-face, and now we've switched to doing it virtually. So each virtual session, we've made that short and sweet deliberately. So it's about individuals feeling they can take part, benefit from the learning and the discussions, and then get back in to really leading their team as fast as possible. And we know that people can't sit in front of a computer screen all day, because Zoom fatigue really is a thing. They've done the research, it doesn't exist. So the content has been designed to be bite-sized and for those core components to be delivered virtually online. And there's also the pre-work, the provoke work, the post-work, and then the online session in the middle. So after the initial launch webinar, which we do with all participants, they're going to be split into 3 smaller groups of 5 for the duration of the programme. And a small group really gives them a chance to really get to know each other, to really support, to really challenge each other. And we found from using this methodology on some other programs that it's a really engaging way to do it for people. It provides a really safe space for everyone to contribute. So those voices that may typically have been a bit quieter in face-to-face space, everyone can have a voice, so they can say what they really think, and to build up a trusted network within that group that they can really rely on when they need to, because they're building those really strong relationships there. So they can really share learnings with each other, insights with each other. And part of this program as well is that we'll be working on a project outside of this, as well as doing post-work activities after each session, which again cement those relationships and opportunities to connect and come together even more.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, and I've roped Alan Lewin into doing a video about the project specifically, so watch this space on that. But no, Vicki, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for your time today, and we're just really excited to get going. So we'll be tracking our progress, interviewing participants and the contributors that are playing a part in this. We've got mentors from around the sector to contribute to the project. We've got some exciting guest speakers for the master classes as well. So all in all, I think we're all really looking forward to getting going with it. So yeah, just excited to get going. So thank you very much, Vicki.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.